Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the connection between trauma and being an empath and answering the question as to whether or not you are actually an empath. So I've heard so many people saying, even in my own life, that you're not an empath, you're just traumatized. But nobody ever elaborated on this, and I always kind of thought that it didn't really make sense, and it kind of cheeses me off, to be honest, when people say this. So what is the truth about this? What is the actual connection between being an empath and being traumatized? So firstly, the truth is you are an empath. In fact, every human being on this planet is an empath. It's just that some people have that ability more developed for various reasons, and whereas other people can have it quite subdued for other various reasons. For example, the chemicals in our food, the chemicals that get sprayed on us, the belief conditioning, all these things combined can actually subdue that natural ability that we do all have. So for other people, sometimes the empathic ability is more developed because the person has intentionally worked on it. And for some people, this is where trauma comes in. Now, I am actually one of these people who has had my empathic ability hyper-developed through trauma. So this is the actual connection. It is not that you are traumatized and therefore not an empath. It is actually that the particular trauma you have been through, like myself, has caused your empathic ability to become hyper-developed as a survival mechanism. Okay, now this pertains to particular trauma, not just any trauma. You know, for example, if you're in a car accident, that kind of trauma is probably not going to cause you to develop your empathic abilities. It's particularly trauma pertaining to people. So for example, when I was a child, I was bullied, as many of us are, and this caused me to basically learn that in order to get through this trauma, in order to survive around people, I had to mold myself to what people were thinking and feeling, and therefore I had to become aware of what they were thinking and feeling. So this caused me to hyper-develop that empathic ability. It does not mean you don't have that empathic ability. That's ridiculous. This is why it cheeses me off so much when people say you're traumatized, you aren't an empath. That doesn't make any sense at all. It's just that your trauma has caused you to hyper-develop that empathic ability. Now, you've probably heard many people who are empaths say that when they walk into a room and they feel everybody's thoughts and feelings, it kind of weighs them down and they just can't handle it. I was also that person. You know, for many years I actually believed I would not be able to live a life around other people, and I actually kind of made plans to not live around people. I was thinking, I actually can't do this. I actually believed I would not be able, literally just not be able to be around other people. And, you know, I used to have panic attacks in the supermarket because there were people there. So you've probably heard many people say they walk into a room and they just feel so weighed down by all the thoughts and feelings in there. And people are telling these empaths that they're not empaths, they're just traumatized. Now, the truth here is the reason why you walk into a room and it overwhelms you, all the thoughts and feelings, it is because you're connecting back to your trauma, but it's also because you're an empath. So what's happening here is the difference between somebody who has not hyper-developed their empathic ability and you is that when you walk into a room now and you feel all those thoughts and feelings, you've got a voice in your head saying, I need to control all of these thoughts and feelings in order to survive. Whereas a person who's not been through the trauma that you've been through, they still have the empathic ability, but they don't have that voice in their head telling them they need to control all these thoughts and feelings in order to survive, and you do. And that is why an empath who has developed their ability through trauma is suffering this way and cannot handle being around other people. So that is the connection between trauma and being an empath. You are indeed an empath. We all are. Now, because I've been through this myself, obviously. So I think the main thing that you can do to get through that trauma and survive as an empath so obviously the main problem is that you've got this voice in your head telling you that you have to control everyone's thoughts and feelings to survive, and you're hyper aware of those thoughts and feelings because of your empathic ability and because of the fact that it's been so hyper developed. So essentially, you do not feel safe because of your trauma around people who are perhaps not thinking and feeling the exact things that you want them to think and feel. So essentially, you need to train yourself into changing this belief and believing that you do not need to control everybody's thoughts and feelings. And that is the absolute truth. You do not need to control everybody's thoughts and feelings. You can one day stand in a room with 1,000 people who may all think something bad about you and know that you are completely okay and completely safe and you're going to be fine, because that is the absolute truth. Now, I had to basically remind myself this regularly when I was in social situations in order to get through that, and eventually I did wire in that new belief. And I won't lie to you, you are going to have to go through some very uncomfortable situations. It's not just going to be an instant thing, it never is. You will have to put yourself in social situations and it will be difficult many times. I can't tell you, I've probably mentioned before the amount of bathroom windows I've escaped out of when I've been in social situations. So it's not an easy journey, but one thing that you just need to remind yourself daily when you are in social situations and your empathic ability is kicking in, you're aware of everybody's thoughts and feelings, and that voice in your head is telling you need to control all of it in order to survive. You need to remind yourself that you can be in a room with 1,000 people who are all thinking bad things about you, and the only one opinion or thought or feeling in that room that can actually affect you is yours. You have to always remember that, and that is the absolute truth. You can't please everybody, so just bloody well please yourself. That's what I say. So there's one more exercise you can do. Basically, if you can remember the first or just one of the big situations you went through, perhaps as you were a child, that caused this trauma, that caused you to start believing that you have to control everybody's thoughts and feelings to survive. I've done this myself. I remember many of the situations when I was a child, the social situations that traumatised me, that led to me believing this. In your imagination, you can go back to that situation and you can do what you'll do today, which is when you're remembering perhaps those kids who bullied you or whatever it was, perhaps it was something that happened with your parents, whatever it is, as you're standing there, as that version of yourself that experienced that, remind yourself that you are safe and you do not need to control their thoughts and feelings to survive. Remind yourself that in that moment you will be okay. And you know now, in the future, that you do end up okay. So that is the exercise you can try. So yes, you are an empath. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next video.